Hello, this is Don Mitchell. Welcome back to Disciple, the book that contains 60 lessons to give you experiences that will enable you to draw closer to God and to live the life that He has planned for you since before the beginning of time. Today we continue in part one, Experience God More Fully, as we look at the second week and the second lesson of the second week for days 3 and 4. Consider why God might have created your characteristics. Let's begin with a quote from Psalm chapter 139, verses 13 through 17, in the New King James Version. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, having been yet unformed, and in your book they were all written. The days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God! How great is the sum of them! For those who are not familiar with these verses, it can be surprising to first realize how we were uniquely formed, both mentally and physically, reflects some of God's purposes for our relationship with Him and for increasing and improving His kingdom. Regardless of your prior awareness of God's influence on your life in such ways, think about what can be deduced about God's good plan for you by considering your characteristics and how they have affected your life so far. For instance, what temptations are you easily able to resist because they have little or no appeal to you? Perhaps God intended you to serve His kingdom in places where such temptations are overwhelming for many people. Is your body quite different from many others? How does such a difference enable you to come into friendly contacts with certain people more often than others? How have such contacts affected your spiritual development and your fruitfulness? How have your physical characteristics enabled you to participate in some activities, but not in others? What have been some of the spiritual and fruitfulness consequences so far? How are you similar to most other people? In what ways does being so increase your ability to understand and connect with others in ways that increase your and their connections to God? As you can see from these questions, God's intentions for us are exhibited for all to see or to experience through how we appear, what we can do well or poorly, and how our hearts, minds, and emotions operate. Because God has specific intentions in mind for each individual, appreciate that you have been created to be exactly the way that He wants. Keep hold of that thought the next time you are tempted to feel unhappy because you lack enough of some attribute to accomplish one of your intentions. When you have such a reaction, realize instead that God's intentions are probably different. Such a thought will help keep you oriented towards what He wants you to do. For example, if you lack some skill but feel called to apply it by Him, such a lack might be part of God's intention for helping you become and remain more humble, and for giving you good reasons to rely more on Him. Or perhaps God doesn't want you to be distracted, and lacking the skill helps you focus on doing what He wants in other ways. So now we're going to talk about experiencing God more fully by examining how you were formed demonstrates part of God's purposes for your life. If you aren't sure how to begin such an examination, You might ask those who know you best what they find to be most distinctive about you physically, emotionally, and mentally. You might also find it helpful to observe others as you go about your daily activity, with an eye to noting how they differ from you in various ways. Doing so can help you notice more of your own distinctiveness. Here are questions designed to take you further in examining yourself to identify more of God's purposes for your life. What temptations are you easily able to resist? And what have been the consequences for your spiritual development and service for expanding and improving God's kingdom? Second, what temptations are you not easily able to resist? And what have been the consequences for your spiritual development and service to God's kingdom? 3, how do your physical characteristics affect what activities you do and with whom you most frequently come into contact? And what have been the consequences for your spiritual development and service for expanding and improving God's kingdom? 3, uh, 4 rather, how does your mind, the way your mind works affect what activities you do and with whom you most frequently come into contact? And what have been the consequences? 5, how do the ways that you experience emotions affect what activities you do and with whom you spend time? And what have been the consequences of that? And 6, how do your influences and interests affect the activities you do and with whom you most frequently come into contact? And what have been the spiritual consequences and kingdom consequences? And 7, how has your relationship with God influenced what activities you do and with which people you most frequently interact, and what have been the consequences for your spiritual development and your effectiveness for expanding and improving God's kingdom? So keep those questions in mind. I'll be very interested in your answers, as I'm sure God will be fascinated that you're doing it. So I'll say goodbye for now, and take care and keep experiencing God more fully.